I'm Harley from Harley's Worms, and in this video, I'm going to give you my top 5 easiest vegetables to grow in your garden. And a little bit of a backstory on myself. I've been gardening and helping out on the farm since I was knee high to a grasshopper, if you know what I'm saying. And so I've seen a thing or two, and I've seen it the right way and the wrong way. And I'm going to try to help y'all as beginner gardeners. And starting it off with number 1 is going to be tomatoes. And nothing goes good on a hamburger unless you got tomatoes on it. And so, not to mention, some good salad has to have tomatoes. Whether you were talking about pizza or any other type of food, tomatoes is a key part in it. And so, we started out growing tomatoes our first year really trying to do a garden, and we put it out into the garden soil, and when we put it out, we also added a lot of fertilizers and a lot of soil amendments from the big box stores, and we ended up getting maybe 1 or 2 tomatoes off of each plant that was just thrown in the dirt. But we also kind of seen it coming that our soil wasn't quite where it should be, because your first year it's not going to be as fertile as a garden that's been planted and amended for 10 years. And so what we did is we built a raised garden bed, and it was actually completely up off the ground. It was a ton of work, and we used native soil from the woods and put it in there, and had a pretty substantial harvest for our first year. And we actually had enough tomatoes to share with our family, and that was just our first year. And so we did get a little bit lucky, but the moral of the story is we didn't have a clue of what we were doing, and we ended up getting a ton of tomatoes. Now we are in zone 7, which is Alabama, and so depending on where you're at and your climate, it could be harder to grow than others. But from what I've seen, tomatoes are a pretty good, stable crop to grow. And side story right here, peppers. Now, they're not the easiest thing to grow, especially from seed, but definitely one of the best flavors you can get. And for such a small fruit, it's hard to get the value out of what you can get out of a pepper. Now, I would say it's more towards the expert level of gardening to grow peppers, but definitely don't let it scare you away from trying some of the stuff that's not, supposed to be beginner friendly. And also, this next clip is going to be another pepper of mine that's one of my favorite. And we also have our giant tomato that you've seen is now over 10 feet tall. And so definitely shout out to Mr. Giant Tomato right here. So coming in at number 2, and it might be not my number 1 favorite vegetable to grow, and that's cucumbers. And there's nothing quite like a cucumber on a hot summer day to cool you off and rehydrate you, as well as some very tasty cucumber salad, and among many other things you can make with cucumbers. But again, our first year of gardening, when we were complete rookie beginners, we grew cucumbers in a raised garden bed, the one that I told you was completely off the ground. And we had about 10 to 15 cucumbers, our first time ever growing cucumbers. And so definitely plant you some cucumbers and tomatoes, and you'll be on your way to a harvest, no matter what your skill level is. And speaking of cucumbers, the clip after this one is going to be our cucumbers that we grew, and we've been working on this specific type of cucumber now for 2 years, and I believe we've got the best tasting cucumber and perfect texture and a crazy size on the cucumber. And so yeah, definitely check out our cucumbers and get your cucumber game up. Alright, since y'all made it to 5 minutes in on the video, I'll give you a bonus tip, and that's going to be on your squash. You can get, at a beginner's level, you could get a decent harvest out of squash, like crookneck or zucchini or other types of squash, even pumpkin. But your second year of trying to grow squash, you could run into some pest problems, and especially at year 3. And so hopefully by then you're an expert. And so now we'll get into number 3, and my favorite part of gardening is going to be herbs. And a small herb garden is, you can grow enough herbs for 3 or 4 families. And so there's not much more you can get out of a vegetable than that. And not only that, the basil is my favorite. And because the basil is super versatile, you can pretty much put it on any type of food. And it also brings in a lot of pollinators, because you can't have a fruit on the vegetable without some type of pollinator pollinating the flower and then going to another flower and cross-pollinating it. And so definitely important to have lots of biodiversity in your garden, as well as doing it in a permaculture way, which means to be in harmony with nature. And so you don't want to just have a bunch of tomatoes and cucumbers without, to me, it's probably like a treat for the flying insects or the pollinators, because I do believe that it's probably like an ice cream cone for us versus like a cheeseburger on like a cucumber flower, where the basil is probably like ice cream for them. And so definitely treat your pollinators right and treat yourself right to a nice herb garden. And my favorite herb, like I said, easiest to grow, is going to be basil. And outside of basil, you're going to be getting into more intermediate levels and onward. But definitely basil is going to be your easiest one to grow, especially if you're in a warmer climate, as it pretty much grows like a tomato. And if you'll look closely right here, there's a wasp on the basil as well as a bumblebee, and looks like they're having a bit of a battle. And so I thought that was really cool that I got that on camera. And so anyway, I do believe the bumblebee was running off the wasp, but who knows what's going on with the flying insects for real. But anyway, we're going to move on to number 4, and that's going to be beans, specifically green beans. And there's varieties called the bush bean, which isn't an actual variety, it's just a type, to where they grow up and throw the beans without needing any type of trellis or support. And so definitely try out the bush beans first and make sure you like them. And then once you get to a little more advanced in your gardening skills, then try the climbing beans, because they can definitely take over some stuff very quickly if you're not watching them. And so that's why they're a great beginner bean. Now, these are not the bush bean, but like I said, definitely stick with the bush bean. And also they go great with salads. You can saute them or you can pickle them and have some good pickled green beans. And last but not least, and probably the most underrated of all vegetables, is going to be lettuce. And it's my absolute favorite part of the garden, which I know you probably heard me say that a lot, but I absolutely love all the plants. And to me, lettuce is one that you can't go wrong with. And I say that because no matter how good your soil is, the lettuce, if you water it and take care of it pretty decent, it's going to throw at least some small leaves for you. And now they might not look as beautiful and luscious as this, but like I said, you're looking at 3 years of soil fertility and doing it the best way possible that I know of. And So don't get discouraged if your stuff doesn't look like this, but there's no reason that it can't look like this. If you apply yourself and educate yourself and make sure you give it plenty of water and nutrients, you'll be on your way to eating like a king. And like I said, you're going to have tomatoes, cucumbers, herbs, and lettuce. And if you ask me, that's a very tasty salad. And I know when I first started, it was extremely overwhelming to learn about the plants and how to take care of them. And it's almost like learning another language, honestly. But to me, there hasn't been a single hobby out there that I've tried that has gave me the type of joy that gardening and getting out there in the sunlight and in nature and growing the plants that I love and some plants that I never even heard of and seeing how they grow. And if you're watching this video, I just want to let you know you're very, very early on into gardening, and it's never too late, no matter how old you are, or even if you're all the way up in Maine at the top of the US. I just want to let you know it's not too cold to have a vegetable garden, and if you're all the way down to Key West, it's not too hot. And so definitely don't give up. And even if you started your garden and you threw a bunch of money at it and a bunch of hard work and nothing came up, or just one or two plants and they didn't look all that great and they didn't produce fruit, just try to learn from your mistakes and try again next year. And not only that, if it's the springtime, plan your fall garden, and if it's the fall time, plan your spring garden. And always stay ahead of what you're going to do next in the garden and have a plan, and you'll be on your way to having some epic harvests. And a bonus tip I'll give you for making it this far is going to be to get a bird feeder and feed the birds, not only to have something nice to look at, but if you have animals like a cat or a dog, they'll probably enjoy the bird feeder. And also it will keep the birds away from your fruits and vegetables, and they'll be occupied eating sunflower seeds and having a good time. And so don't underestimate the power of the birds, because they also eat the bugs that eat your fruit. And so I know a lot of people, they'll say, oh, put a scarecrow out, put some stuff to some shiny plates or whatever, but that's not the permaculture way. And so, like I said, we want to be in harmony with nature and the birds. And as you can see, we went to the beach, and it was absolutely beautiful, and tons of birds and seagulls, and it was a good time. And now, if you've made it to this point in the video, I would just like to say thank you for sticking with me. And also, we are a business, and we have pretty much everything you need to be successful in gardening or worm farming. And we sell a lot of what's called a microbial mix, and this is going to boost your microbes in the soil, which is going to help make your plant throw more fruit and be a bigger plant. And so that's the biggest mistake that I see rookie gardeners do, is they'll do the most perfect garden, they'll lay it out perfect, and it'll be nice straight rows and everything looks great, but their plants are only 3 or 4 feet tall. And what that means is there's not enough nutrients and minerals in your soil. And so that's where our microbial mix comes in, as well as our premium grit. And if you put both of those with worm castings, which we sell all of these on our website, you will be on your way to not only getting a harvest, but actually on your way to a world record plant, potentially, if you follow the instructions that come with it and take my advice and watch some of my older videos. And with that, I'll let you enjoy this beautiful beach sunset. Thank you, Legends, for staying till the end. See you next time.